Well, next on the show to something completely different. When people think of our country's history with Black people, they think of freedom. The Underground Railroad, maybe, or Viola Desmond on our $10 bill. But we have, of course, dark truths that we need to face as well. That's why Shanice Steele posts every year on Black History Month facts for the month. It's something they've been doing since 2021.
This is a reminder that queer history is Black history. Founded in 1984 by Afro-Caribbean gay and lesbian activists, Zami, named after the Audre Lorde book and the Creole word for lesbian, became one of the most important support groups and advocacy organizations for Black queer Caribbean voices in the city of Toronto. While they no longer exist as an organization today, their legacy of fighting for Black queer voices do. The more you know.
Now, they want to bust myths about Black history in Canada, as I mentioned, and they join us now on Zoom from Barrie, Ontario. Good morning to you.
Hello, good morning.
It's pretty cool that you do this. Tell me a bit about the motivation behind it, though. It's also got to be frustrating that you feel you need to do this, right, in this country?
Yeah, absolutely. I think the motivation behind it is I really started to hear from Canadians that we don't have the same history as the United States, that we don't have a history of slavery and discrimination. And as I got older and I started researching Black history, I found out that wasn't true. And so it was not only frustrating for me to hear people say that, but it was frustrating for myself because I hadn't learned this history in school either.
Can you bust? I know you can take your pick because there's lots. But what are some of the myths that you'd like to that you'd like to bust that you find maybe come up the most?
I think the biggest one is that we never had slavery in Canada. That was something that I was super surprised about finding out. It was a myth that I busted for myself. I remember my dad took me to Fort Erie in Ontario, and I got my first book about Harriet Tubman, and I was so proud of Canada being this safe place for Black people. And then I went to university, I started reading more, and I learned about slavery in Canada. It's also interesting to know that 50% of enslaved people here were also Indigenous. And so there's that history of solidarity and resilience that we don't hear about a lot. But for me, it was really learning that there was slavery in Canada. There was even a reverse underground railroad where people were trying to escape to the northern United States. And when we think of the Montreal that we see today, it was actually supposedly burnt down by an enslaved woman who was escaping for her freedom, Marie-Joseph Angelique. So those are all things that I think really Canadians need to know about that history.
As you've been doing this over these years, what kinds of conversations does your myth busting, when you do these facts and put them out there, what kinds of conversations come from it?
Honestly, I think most part it's been really positive. Folks are very surprised. They talk about how they didn't learn this, they didn't know that. I think for a lot of Black Canadians or people of African descent, it allows them to know the history on this land, to know their relationship with the government, with people, what they've contributed to what we now see as Canada. And I think for non-Black people, non-people of African descent, it's a real reckoning. It's an eye-opening opportunity. It was a reckoning for me, and I think it gives us an opportunity to know our history so that we can do better. And I think it's been really receptive. There's been some folks being like, "Ooh, I don't know how I feel about that." And I think, right, it's that feeling of guilt of not knowing, and so it's about like working through that. But so far, the conversations have been really great.
Um, when you engage with people online, do you have a sense of where they're coming from, like whether or not generationally you're reaching older generations who are saying, I had no idea, or generations your age that are saying, I also had no idea, I wasn't taught this. What's your sense of who's leaning into these discussions?
Honestly, I would say it's people of any age. I've had teachers reach out my videos. So I made videos in 2021 and got fake mustaches and costumes and really dressed up for them. And so teachers have really used those videos in their classrooms, and I've done class talks for that. I've definitely spoken with older people, even within my family, who did not know this history. So it's really been a wide array of Canadians that are engaging in this conversation and in this topic, from people my age to the older generation to youth as well.
What else do you plan to do with your platform for the rest of Black History Month?
So I'll be sharing every single day either a post or a reel about Black Canadian history that folks may not know about. For me, it's really about finding ways to engage with Canadians, to share this history, because I think it's super important. And so, yeah, I'll be doing it the rest of Black History Month. Every single day, there will be a new fact to learn. And I'm super excited because I'm getting excited in the research that I'm doing. I'm learning about Black Canadian history that I didn't know and getting like really nerded out about it. I love it. And so, yeah, it's going to be a learning journey for myself and anyone who's following me for the rest of the month.
Who are some of the Black content creators that you're learning from?
So there's actually quite a few, and there's some books that I want to recommend as well. So historically speaking.ca is a Instagram account that I highly recommend following because they post Black Canadian history, not just during Black History Month, but throughout the year. Charismagi TV, also on Instagram, who's been posting a lot of great Black Canadian content, but also will be posting during Black History Month as well, and has already made a really amazing post about the history of Black History Month in Canada. How did it come about? For Francophone listeners, I highly recommend Camille Esther, Camille_Esther, also on Instagram, who will be posting in French throughout the month, Black Canadian history. And then some books that I highly recommend to kind of give you an understanding of history in this country is The Hanging of Angelique by Afua Cooper, who talks about Marie-Joseph Angelique and her story. Unsettling the Great White North by Michelle A. Johnson, and Funke Aladejebi, who was a professor at Trent University that I learned under and is an amazing Black Canadian historian. I highly recommend following those three people, reading those books so that you can learn more about Black Canadian history.
Thank you very much for being with us this morning, Shanice. Appreciate you.
Thank you so much. Have a great day.
You too. That's Shanice Steele. She's an Afro-Indigenous educator, lives in Barrie, Ontario. If you want to follow their page, Learn with Shanice, it's on Instagram. And as mentioned, they'll be posting something new each and every day specifically for Black History Month. They've done that for the last number of years.